Hi guys, my name's Danielle. I've been doing vintage hair for over a decade, and today I'm going to attempt to get my longer than normal hair to do this 1940s style for an event. Long-time followers know my hair can be a bit difficult, but I'm determined to give it a crack, so let's go. For setting, you will need a setting spray or mousse of some description, a rat tail comb, a detangler brush or a brush that you like to use, hair clips, and whatever medium you're setting your hair with. Let's go. So I start by putting my setting solution, or in this case mousse, all through my hair. I really focus on trying to get it in my roots as well as my ends, because for me this mousse is going to help give my hair some grit, which is going to make teasing easier later down the track. Once it's all in, I like to just give it a brush through with my detangler brush, just to make sure it's all through, but also to make sure that I don't have any knots in my hair before I start styling, which helps with my sectioning. Okay, first steps first is we're going to section out the fringe. The front of this hairstyle has a little S wave, so I'm going to section that section first to make sure that it has the right structure. Gonna just give it another quick brush to prep it, and then we are ready to roll it. So to create the S-bang shape, I like to do two rollers going one way and then the end roller going the opposite direction. And with the front section, it's always best to section it on a slight diagonal so that you don't get lines or gaps in your fringe when you eventually do brush it out. I'm using a large roller first and two smaller rollers afterward, just to help give the front of my S a bit of volume. You can always do this set with sponge rollers if that's what you have, or even like pin curl it or use bendy rollers. It's just, this is the overall setting pattern I'm doing to achieve this look. You also want to make sure when you're rolling that your ends are fully tucked under, because if you're not, then you're going to get those weird kink ends that aren't quite rounded and that can go really fuzzy and sit not quite right. So the whole purpose of setting my hair like this is to support the hair to go in the style that I want by setting it in the shape of the style. So we have our fringe done, and now I'm going to do one of the sides. If you look, it's basically victory rolls that have curls at the front. So I'm going to curl now the victory side roll. When I'm setting for victory rolls, I like to roll my curlers upward towards the top of the head, as that's where my victory rolls sit. And I also like to graduate my curlers from small curlers to large curlers at the bottom. This is the opposite size arrangement to how I brick pattern the back of my head, and I do it this way because the bulk of the curl for a victory roll is on the top of the head. That's where we want the structure, so that's where I want to have a tighter curl so I have more to play with. Whereas I want a larger curl at the bottom, as I want that smoothness across the outside, because most of the outside part of the hair is going to come from the bottom part of the set. You can also adapt this victory roll setting pattern to just doing asymmetrical or symmetrical victory rolls without the little front S wave. You just take that bit out and you mirror this on both sides of the head from where you want your rolls to meet down. Okay, so now that we've got this side done, I'm going to do the other side. Now, because there is kind of like a mini roll in the middle, I'm actually going to section this slightly different and have two rollers that are going backwards behind the S-bang. So you can see me taking that section here, and I'm just going to put two rollers in there. This is just to kind of make a bridge or a join within this victory roll set, to make it more of almost like a curl crown across, as opposed to two really defined rolls. You can also do these forward if you would prefer the roll to be more front sitting, but I thought for this I would try it going backwards, and that's the way I would probably keep it. You could, if your hair is also thinner, do this in one roller instead of two. I just have really thick hair that doesn't like to dry, so I prefer to do two sections so that it has more of a chance of drying. And now that little crown section is done, I'm basically going to mirror what I did on the other side of my head to create the second roll. So we're going to do larger rollers at the bottom, smaller rollers at the top, and they're all going to be rolled towards the crown of my head. Now, because I'm mirroring the other side of my head, I did try and cut out some of this because we've kind of already seen it, but you kind of get the gist. And that is the front of the head, which is where most of the structure is going to be completed. This is what it looks like, all done. And now it's time to do the back. I have a lot of hair, so I'm not going to actually video the back because I'd be here forever, but I did a general brick pattern, which is where they're not rows, but they kind of brick lay in together. And I did larger rollers at the top, medium in the middle, and small at the bottom to help hold. Now, if you have sponge rollers and did this with sponge or pin curls, you can just scarf it and call it a night. I've done this on really wet hair on brush rollers because that's what works best for my hair. So I'm going to put it in this net scarf, which I use to help my hair dry better. And I'm going to go sit under my hood dryer for probably 1 to 2 hours to get it to dry ahead of going to bed tonight. So we will jump back in tomorrow and see how it came out. Okay, good morning everyone. It is time to brush out this set. I swapped it to sponge overnight for more comfortable sleeping, and today is the day, so we're going to see how it goes. As a reminder, this is our inspo pick of what we're hoping for or vibing for. And for styling, you're going to need clips. So I use duckbills and sectional clips, bobby pins. I also have these ones. Various combs and brush tools, a working hairspray as well as a final setting spray, some sort of pomade, and I prefer to put my back end in a hairnet. So first you're going to take all your rollers out very gently. The gentler you are, the better your curl structure will hold, and you're going to section them into the back, the side, two sides and the front. I personally start by brushing my detangler through and then popping in my pomade or working wax just to help deal with frizz and give a bit of shine. This one smells like Starbursts. It is delicious. I warm it up on my hands through and run it all through, and then I rebrush it before I'm going to start working on structuring the victory roll. So this is the side with just the victory roll, so I'm going to start by sectioning and teasing it. I really want a lot of structure in there so it stays in place throughout the day with minimal movement. I tease this inner section the most, and I only lightly tease the bottom section as that's going to be the outside of the victory roll, and I don't want it to be too frizzy. This looks hella crazy, but we're going to trust the process, everyone. I've now taken my ball bristle or smoothing brush and just run it over that underside, and I'm now going to brush with a smaller paddle brush the ends over my hand to give the curl there more structure and make it smoother. I also like to pull it up to where it's kind of going to go and give it a brush, as I find that helps it sit better. One more brush over with the ball bristle brush, and then I'm going to take my working hairspray, spray it on and smooth over it with the ball bristle brush before we roll it. Now to roll it, I'm going to tuck that curl under, hold it in with my finger and basically roll it down towards my head. It is okay to have to do this a few times for placement. Once you have placement, you're going to secure it with a bobby pin within the curl, and I like to go through the back as well. Then I just take my comb and just mold it, basically. Adjust it, pull it a little bit, put pins in place to secure it, get it to where I'm happy with it, and then once I've done that, I can move on. Alright, so there we go. The next section I'm going to do is I'm going to brush out this other side, and I'm going to start first with the same process I did, which is brush out with the detangler, use some of the pomade working wax just to reduce frizz and make it a bit more pliable. But I'm not going to do the whole roll on this side first. I'm actually just going to brush this through, and then I'm going to take the little crown section where we have the adjoining victory roll or just curl, and I'm going to do that separately first. I'm going to brush it through with the paddle brush, and again redo what I did before, which is brush my ends around my hair to help the curl, and then I'm going to basically do what I did before, which is tease it just a little bit to help it hold its structure. And then I'm going to repeat the process I did on the victory roll, which is to smooth it with the ball bristle brush, brush through the ends with the smaller paddle brush. I'm going to make sure I have a nice clean section, and then I'm going to start rolling it down. Again, it's totally okay if you have to do this a few times. I actually did this like 4 times before I was really happy with it. I just didn't put all of them in the video, or we would have been here forever. Once you have it where you want to get a bobby pin and secure it in place like you did with the other victory roll. I personally made this kind of curl face the victory roll, so roll towards it, just to give it a bit more of like a heart look. Now we move on to the other side. I'm going to prep it the exact same way I have the other side. However, the placement of this in its final shape is going to be slightly different to what we have done with the other two. After I brush my ends, I'm going to pull it up high, give it a spritz with the hairspray, and just run the ball bristle brush through it to help smooth out any ends. And instead of actually rolling this down like I did before, I'm going to make a S shape and pin it so that the outside looks like a victory roll shape, but the curls are free and loose. This will mean those curls at the end are then facing forward, and it'll enable me to place them in front of what would have been that roll, just to create that illusion of a lot of curl in the area. Once I have those ends where I want them, I'm going to go in with a bobby pin and my fingers and start molding them and placing them where I think they're going to look best. This can be a process. It's okay if it takes a little while, especially if it's your first time trying a hairstyle. It's honestly just trial and error of figuring out what you're happy with. Okay, once I've got that done, I'm going to move on to that front section, which is the S-bang. Now, this hair is really long on me at the moment. It's longer than I normally have a fringe, so we're going to see kind of what it will do. I think mine's going to sit a bit higher at the roots in the photo just because of the rollers that I used. So I'm just going to try and recreate an S shape and see how it comes out. I'm going to use duckbill clips as I go to hold it in place so that I can work on the next sections without actually having to pin it while I find the placement. Once I have the initial S shape, I'm going to use my smaller paddle brush just to brush the ends to make it a bit smoother, and then I'm going to roll it and sit it into a place which I'm happy with. Again, it's okay if this takes you a little while to figure out what's going to work, especially if it's your first time doing a specific style, because sometimes you don't know till you try. Once you're happy with the overall placement, it is time to secure everything with bobby pins to make sure it doesn't move, because we don't want our hair to move after putting all this work in. Alright, now I'm going to take those fringe duckbill clips out because I want to kind of see how it's going to sit without the weight. And I'm going to spray it all with working hairspray to hold before I start working on the back of my hair. Okay, so I'm just going for a basic brush out in the back. So the first thing I need to do is go through and break up all my curls with my fingers, which is going to make it super fluffy. At least it does for me. Then I'm going to go in with my detangler brush and just run that through to make sure there aren't any knots in there, because I've basically just disrupted a whole bunch of curls. Then I'm going to take some more of my working wax, or you can use pomade, and I'm going to again warm it up between my hands and then run it through the back of my hair. This is going to help, as I said before, reduce frizz and just give it a really nice shine and make it a bit more pliable to work with. I'm now going to take my large paddle brush and I'm going to start brushing. Now, when you're brushing out a set like this, it can sometimes feel a bit scary when you're new to wet setting that you're going to brush out your curls. If your set is done properly, your curls will not brush out. And you can just keep brushing and brushing until you kind of find that happy medium. You're going to brush out both sides in full like that. And then what I like to do to help me get my sets to hold is I hold my hair like it's in a ponytail. So I brush it all into the hold of my hand, and I hold my hand tight and brush out all the ends. And then I move my hand down the ponytail to the next spot, and I do it again and again until I get to the very bottom and the hair is released. When I'm doing this, I'm brushing the hair under, so down, and when I let it go, it kind of helps it form that wave. This is the only way I've been able to do it with my hair this length because it is just so long. I always check the back because I can't see my own hair from the back, but it's looking really good. So now I'm going to go in with some duckbill clips and just accentuate those two waves that have been made through this process with the clips that I'm then going to hairspray. This is going to help make them more defined and just give the back of my hair more shape. Alright, once they're all in, you want to check placement with the mirror to make sure that you've got them in the right spot. I need to move a couple of these. And once this is all done, I'm going to spray it with working hairspray and then spray it, once I'm really happy with it, with my full proper hairspray, which is Stronghold. Now I'm going to go get dressed and do my makeup, and I'm going to come back and show you the end look. So this is how this end look turned out. It's not exactly like the picture, but it is definitely serving 1940s glamour. I got some really nice shape through the back, which I'm pretty happy with considering I'm learning to brush it at this length. And I actually really love how the front turned out. I think it's really pretty. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. Let me know in the comments. Bye!